Since the topics addressed constitute fundamental premises of the PVT, we conclude that PVT is untenable because it is not defensible based on existing neurophysiological and evolutionary evidence. That's funny. That's funny. The way they wrote that, that's funny. Like, you gotta give them credit. I'm about to piss some people off. And I'm okay with that, really, I am. I'm making this video because I was scrolling through Facebook, as one does, and I came across a comment in one of the therapist communities I'm a member of, and someone wrote, "How's everyone doing with the Polyvagal critique? Context added. The most recent publication where 39 international researchers who study the vagus nerve and related areas came together to publish a critique about polyvagal being untenable." What? I didn't know about this. I was immediately interested. Now, to give you a little context, my name is Cassie McCarthy. I am a therapist that specializes in trauma and PTSD, but I use an evidence-based practice called cognitive processing therapy, or CPT. CPT is very well researched. It's considered the gold standard for trauma therapy because it's an evidence-based practice, which means it's been studied over and over and over again, and it has a ton of proof that it works. And I can be a snob about trauma therapy because I really want people to get the help they need, but there are therapies out there that are claiming to do trauma work that aren't researched and have no proof supporting their efficacy, and they're trying to get people to come in for therapy with them, and I just think it's wild. Like, how can you provide therapy that has no research supporting it? And over the years, I have seen a lot of other therapists who are doing things like Polyvagal Theory try to poo-poo on the evidence-based practices. And I never understood why, other than you might be feeling a bit insecure that your theory, it's a theory, not a therapy, first of all, your theory doesn't have any backing. So naturally, I went, what's going on here? And so I read through the comments, and let's look at a few of them, shall we? I haven't seen the critique, but I feel really curious about two takedown articles so close together about two kinds of non-traditional therapies. Could be conspiracy theorying too much, though. What are you talking about? Who is conspiring? Those that may be conspiring are not conspiring about mental health therapies. They don't give a shit about mental health. They're conspiring about world politics and macroeconomics. They're not bothering themselves with the field of mental health. They don't care about us. Oh, goodness. Please provide more context. The woman wrote in her original post, led by Grossman, published in February 2026. Please Google it. I'm short on time. Why would you ask her to elaborate? She already told you she's short on time. She's at the boundary. Is there anything substantially new in this criticism besides them declaring it untenable? Or is it Grossman continuing to beat his same drum? So time out. Does this mean that you already knew people were saying this therapy, or theory, I should say, isn't providing value to the field, and you persisted with it anyway? That's odd. Someone replied. Oh, and they said, no, LOL. What? What do you mean there's no new information in this? It was published in a peer-reviewed journal. Peer-reviewed journals are only publishing new information. That's weird. Okay, let's read a little bit more. I've seen it's a long time, and it's probably just a typo that they have. And I agree it's probably an oversimplified explanation, and it gives good language to people. Okay. I kind of like what this person's saying. I agree that when you're doing trauma therapy with clients, you need to be able to explain what you're doing to your clients, and having a way to explain it that makes it understandable is really important. And I see what people are saying, that Polyvagal Theory gave a language to people. The problem with that is that Polyvagal Theory gave an incorrect language to people. I think it is our duty to use science and evidence-based practice with our clients to give them a language that is empirically validated. So yes, clients need language, but let's give them accuracy with it. Oh goodness, this person reads 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 paragraphs, a 5-paragraph essay in the comments, starting with the statement, I've not had a chance to read the latest critique. If you haven't had a chance to read the latest critique, how do you have 5 paragraphs of a response to it? I don't understand that. I'm not going to read that. If you're not going to read it, if you're not reading the article, I'm not reading it. So maybe we should pause here and let's take a look at the article, shall we? So I had a chance to glance over this a little bit, and And I thought it was really interesting to see this article published in a peer-reviewed journal called Clinical Neuropsychology, published February 2026. So it's very recent. If you're not in academia, the kind of standard is we like to see things published within the last 5 years, and it should be published from a peer-reviewed journal, meaning other people read the research and the data, looked at all the information, looked at the numbers, and said, yeah, what you're saying is true. So why the polyvagal theory is untenable? I mean, that's a bold way to start. Like, you're coming out swinging, guns out, shots fired right from the jump. I'm here for it. An international expert evaluation of the polyvagal theory and commentary upon Porges' polyvagal theory, current status, clinical applications, and future directions. Okay, let's read the abstract together. 39 highly acknowledged experts in the areas of physiology and the evolution of the vagus nerve of vertebrate social behavior, many whose works have been cited in polyvagal theory literature as supporting the theory, were invited by the first author to participate as co-authors in this article. Okay, so polyvagal theory pulled from all of these pieces of science. And so the authors of those pieces of science that pulled from were contacted and said, hey, do you have thoughts on what polyvagal theory is saying? They were asked to evaluate the PVT and comment upon an overview of the theory written by its author. Okay, cool. So, hey guys, this dude has been citing you. Do you want to respond to what he is saying about your work? All those invited, save for one, accepted and co-authored the paper. It's pretty good. 38 out of 39 people said, yeah, I want to respond to what this guy is saying. The dissenting scholar was unfamiliar with the PVT. And they put that in quotes. Meaning, this guy was like, or girl was like, I don't know what PVT is. Leave me out of this. So PVT is referencing them and they're like, I don't know. I don't know anything about that. Leave me out of this. This article specifically appraises, based upon the current state of knowledge of autonomic function and vertebrate evolution, several major elements of the PVT as described in Porges and elsewhere. These include 1, the validity of PVT assumptions that respiratory sinus arrhythmia is a direct measure of the extent of the central vagal nerve to the heart. I always thought that was like a weird assumption PVT was making. And I was always like, I think this is weird. And you don't have any research showing that PVT works. So I was just very doubtful of everything PVT said, because PVT couldn't back up what it was saying. Like, why aren't you running clinical trials? If you're so great, why aren't you getting grants and demonstrating how great you are? But they didn't. And if they did, it never got through to be published. So then even if they ran the trials, I don't know if they did or didn't, but if they did run the trials, no journal picked it up to say this is valid. And getting published one time, I want to say, does not make you an evidence-based practice. Evidence-based requires that you've been studied numerous times and that your samples are large enough and generalizable to the greater public so that it can be disseminated on large scale. But anyway, 2, PVT characterizations regarding the neuroanatomy and functions of 2 major brainstem vagal nuclei, the ventrally situated nucleus ambiguous and the dorsal motor nucleus of the vagus nerve. Okay, so basically 1 and 2 is like, you guys made these assertions about physiology and neurobiology. PVT assertions regarding the evolution of the vagus nerve and how it came to be. PVT claims about the specificity of mammalian social behavior in relation to non-mammalian vertebrates. Yeah, so like PVT would make all these claims that there were these connections between different animal species, I guess. I haven't deeply studied it because I'm not studying something that has no merit. And 5, PVT interpretations of earlier seminal physiological literature. Okay, so that's the piece that's interesting to me. That part of what it was is how PVT interpreted literature. So basically, PVT went out and studied some literature and then interpreted it through their lens and created polyvagal theory. And now people who did the original research have responded to how their research was interpreted through polyvagal theory. All co-authors agree that major tenets of the PVT are not supported by past or current knowledge, and in several instances are inconsistent with the broader evidence base. Since the topics addressed constitute fundamental premises of the PVT, we conclude that PVT is untenable because it is not defensible based on existing neurophysiological and evolutionary evidence. That's funny. That's funny. The way they wrote that, that's funny. Like, I gotta give them credit. And let's be clear for a minute. The fact that they went out and they did all of this work to debunk polyvagal theory is hilarious. Writing an article like this took them well over a year. It required the coordination of at least 38 scholars plus the other authors of this paper. So that's a huge amount of coordination that was required to do this, and a ton of effort. This is the academic equivalent of when 50 Cent did a 6-part docuseries taking down P. Diddy. Like, this is the academic equivalent of that. The physiological evidence composing the superstructure of the PVT are primarily derived from earlier psychological literature and are neither clarified nor strengthened by PVT constructs that lack evidence. So basically, PVT, you took other people's knowledge, you misinterpreted it, and then you tried to build on your misinterpretations. Nope. This article does not intend to address the alternative explanations about relations between vagal functioning and psychological processes, although such explanations do exist. So basically, polyvagal, what you tried to do, other people are trying to do. We're not going to talk about what those other people are doing. We're just talking about what you were doing. You read information, you misinterpreted it, you built on it, and then you disseminated it, and there's nothing credible about what you're saying. And this article just dismantles it and dismantles them. And I highly encourage you read it for yourself. I will attach it below in the description of this. I would love to hear people's thoughts on it. Personally, I think it's high time that we actually hold therapists accountable for the therapy they're doing. If you're not doing an evidence-based practice, what are you doing with your clients? Your clients deserve a high level of care. We're healthcare providers. Mental health is health. We're healthcare providers, and we need to provide services that are researched and validated and supportive and effective. It's our ethical duty. So let's go back and see what other people were saying in this thread. I'm open to changing my view should relevant data be presented, but mine and my clients' lived experience is that PVT and IBS teach clients how to intuit their inner experiences in a way that they do not have language for. Okay, I'm glad that you're going to be open-minded. I'm glad. But there are other and better therapies that are more effective, that are actually effective, that do the same thing. All the evidence-based practices help your clients understand their emotions and better manage them. There is cognitive processing therapy, which is what I do. There's prolonged exposure therapy. There's EMDR. There's written exposure. These are evidence-based practices that are available and work very effectively. Why aren't you using them? From what I've seen so far, there have been critiques about the men, Schwartz especially, and the neuroscience of the theory. But in Porter's response, he seems to be saying they've misinterpreted PVT based on an inaccurate representation of it. But they cited him. Also, PVT is a working theory. In my mind, by definition, it's going to continue to evolve, and we need rigorous debate and good data for that to happen. I agree we need good data. Where is your data? Where is your data? Let's have it. Let's see it. You don't got it. All of that aside, I worked with a client today using PVT to explain and do an exercise in remembering and mapping nervous system states, and they loved the attunement they had with their body. Great. You can do that using evidence-based practice. At this point, I don't have evidence enough to do anything different in my practice around PVT or IFS. Read the article. They have been a great blend with my ACT, ERP work, and brain spotting. ACT and brain spotting are also not evidence-based practices. ERP is for OCD, not for trauma and PTSD. So keep doing ERP with your OCD clients, but ACT and brain spotting, not evidence-based. Why are you doing things that aren't researched and validating? If my clients are better understanding themselves, learning and growing, then I'm going to use techniques that align with their needs and perspectives and do that work and do what works for them. I agree. Use evidence-based practice. Use evidence-based practice. Everything that people say that PVT does, which is help people understand how their body is responding to trauma and trauma cues, be able to recognize that they don't need to use that response anymore and develop a new response, right? That's what people claim PVT does. That is literally called an ABC in the world of cognitive processing therapy. We do that in module 2. There were 12 modules in CPT. So you're telling me where you end up with your clients is where we begin. And we have a lot of work we do after that to help people actually truly recover with the numbers to prove it in long-term research to show that it is a permanent state of recovery. What research you got? What do you guys got? You guys don't have anything. Are there links, please? The person already said Google it. Why are you, why? What are we talking about here? Article of context. So many people are saying, do you have a link? She said, Google it. She doesn't have time to link it for you. I think it's like any theory. When we stick to it in a protocol base, it's not going to encompass the needs of our clients. That might be true for a theory. I don't know. I don't follow from a theory. Cognitive processing therapy is a therapy because it's been proven effective. And it is a protocol-based approach because we know what works. And the research shows if you deviate from the protocol, you're going to actually reduce its efficacy. So you want to follow the protocol. It doesn't mean there isn't a natural, like, je ne sais quoi each therapist brings into the room and that it's not independently and individually tailored to the client. Of course it is. Of course it is. But the steps, the techniques, the interventions, we know what works, and so we use them. I think you guys get the gist of it here. It's a lot of the same thing going on here, but I am really adamant that it's important to use therapies that have been researched and proven effective with clients. Yeah, there's going to be a time for clinical trials, but you use clinical trials when there isn't other evidence-based research that has been effective with you or your loved one. That's when you go to a clinical trial. We start with the evidence-based practice, and I think therapists have a duty to use evidence-based care in their practice. So that's my spiel of the day. I would love to hear what you guys think. Like, share, comment, do all the things. And if you want more of this, subscribe and you'll be notified of the next time I drop a video. Thanks, guys.